Okay, so here's a video on how to graph lines in standard form. Standard form is ax plus by equals c, and a and b and c are just numbers. So you might have a problem that looks like 2x minus 3y equals 6. So that is what an equation in standard form looks like. To graph it, you have to find the x-intercepts and then the y-intercepts, and then just connect those 2 points. So that is how you graph in standard form. So let's look at some examples. So the first thing, again, we need to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. On number 1, they've given them to us. So the x-intercept is a 4. So you're going to go on this x-axis to a 4 and make a point. And then the y-intercept was a -1. So you're going to go to on the y-axis where it's a -1 here and then make a point. All right, so once you've graphed your points, all you have to do is connect your line. Whoa. Okay, so that is how you graph a line in standard form. Let's look at number 2. When they give you these equations, here is how you find the x and the y-intercept. To find the x-intercept, you're going to cover up the y's, okay? So if I'm looking for the x, I'm going to completely ignore that -12y right now. Okay, do you see an equation that we can solve? It'd be 3x equals 24. And then you just solve a normal one-step problem. So you would divide by 3 on both sides. You would get x equals 8. Okay, so that is how you find your x-intercept. Now let me find my y-intercept. So to find the y-intercept, you're going to cover up the x. Okay, so I'm going to ignore this positive 3x, and I'm going to find my y-intercept. So my equation would be -12y equals a 24. And I would solve that one-step problem by dividing by -12. And I would get y equals a -2. So now you have your y-intercept, you have your x-intercept, and now you just need to plot them. So for x equals 8, notice there's really not an 8, but an 8 would be somewhere over here. So I am going to draw a point outside of that graph, and that's okay. And then my y-intercept would be a -2, so that would be right here. And now I can just connect my 2 points. So that would be the graph of that standard form equation. All right, so let's try another one together, and then I'll let you guys practice on your own. On number 3, I'm going to find my x-intercept first. So that means I'm going to ignore my y. And I would get x equals 2. And I'm done. I didn't have to solve anything on that problem. To find my y-intercept, I'm going to ignore this x, and I will get y equals 2. And so now that I have an x-intercept and I have a y-intercept, I'm going to graph those 2 points. So here's a 2 on the x, here is a 2 on the y, and then I would connect my points. Okay? Let's try one more together. First thing I want to do is find my x-intercept. So I'm going to ignore my y term. So notice, don't cover up that negative since it was with the 10. So my equation would be -10x equals a -15. I would divide by -10. Going to get a decimal, but that's okay. So -15 divided by a -10 is a positive 1.5. So my x-intercept would be a 1.5. To find the y-intercept, I'm going to ignore that x term. So I'm now going to get rid of this -10x. And I would have -3y equals 15. divide by negative 3, and then y is going to equal a 5. So my y-intercept's a 5, my x-intercept is a 1.5. So a 1.5 is going to lie in between this 1 and this 2. So I'd graph a 1.5. I would then graph y at a 5. And then I would connect my 2 points. Alright, so that is how you graph a line in standard form. Remember, to find the x, you're going to cover up your y. To find the y-intercept, you're going to cover up the x. Totally fine if you get decimals. Just find the decimal on that number line. So you are going to practice now. I want you to try these on your own, and then I'm going to put up the answers in a second. So please press pause, try all of this on your own, and when you're done with 5 through 8, then you can press play and we'll talk about what we got. Yes, you press pause now. Alright, so here is what I got for number 5. My equation was 5x equals negative 4. I divided by 5 and I got negative 0.8, which would be right before the negative 1. Don't forget that that negative sign is with that negative 4, so I got negative 4y equals negative 4, divided by negative 4, and I got a 1. So I went to where y was 1, and then I graphed my line. On number 6, I'm going to ignore this y to get my x, and I got 4x equals negative 5. Divide by 4, you do get negative 1.25, which would be a little bit after that negative 1. For this one problem, there is an imaginary 1 right here. So you could have had negative 1y equals negative 5, and that is why I divided by a negative 5. Once I did that, I got a positive 5 for the y. So I drew a positive 5 on the y-intercept, negative 1.2 on the x, and connected my lines. On number 7, I got 5x equals negative 15 for my x-intercept, and I got negative 3 for my answer. So I went on a negative 3 on the x. For the y, I divided by 3 and got negative 5, so I went to a negative 5, connected my 2 points, and got that line. Lastly, you should get 6x equals negative 20. Divide by 6, you did get negative 3.333 repeating. So I put this line over my repeating sign, and negative 3.33 would be a little bit after the negative 3. Lastly, don't forget that's a negative 5y, so negative 5y divided by negative 20, and then you would get a positive 4, so positive 4 on the y, and connect your 2 points. Okay, so those are how you graph lines in standard form. You do need to find the x and the y-intercept first. So now, you get to practice on your lovely little IXL. So S16 is just finding x and y intercepts, and then S17 is when you get into graphing them. Alright, so go ahead and get started on that. I do have paper copies if you would like paper copies, but that is how you're practicing this. Thank you for watching.